Okay, today our lesson is Chapter 1, Lesson 1A, 1A, and we're going to take fractions and change them into decimals, and we're going to take decimals and change them back into fractions. You stop the video now. If you don't have any notebook paper, go grab it. You'll need notebook paper to take notes on and to work out some of these example problems. All right, first we're going to take fractions and go to decimals. So I have three categories. There are some questions you're just going to know in your head. You can just take that fraction, you just know right away it's a decimal. There's some that have easy denominators, and then there's everything else. All right, I'd like you to look at this list. 1/2, 1/3, 1/5, 2/5, 1/4, 3/4, 3/10. Stop the video, write the list down, and see if there's any of those fractions that you just know right away what the decimal is, and then hit play and see if you were right. Okay, how'd you do? Did you get 1/2 is 0.5, 5/10? Did you get that a third was 0.3 repeating? Maybe if you know 1/3, you also know 2/3. Do you know your fifths? Can you change your fifths into decimals? 1/5 is the same as 0.2, 2/5 is the same as 0.4. See if you can think about what 3/5 would be. 1/4 is 0.25. Think of money like a fourth of a dollar is 25 cents. That makes 3/4, 75 cents, 0.75. 3/10, the tenths just sound like they should be decimals. 3/10, 3/10. 3/10, 0.3, just sounds like it should be there. So maybe there's some fractions you just know in your head. All right, for this list, pause the video, write those 4 fractions down, and I'm going to tell you how easy denominators can sometimes help us so we're not over in this last category. All right, 17/100ths just sounds like it's a decimal already. A lot of times people say 0.17, which is slang kind of, but this is, if I said it correctly, 17/100ths. Looks just like this. Well, this fraction, could I make him be something hundredths? Sure I could. I could times by 4, and I could get 4/100ths. Well, that sounds pretty easy. 4/100ths. So I write it as a decimal. Can 20 also make 100? Sure it can. Times by 5. Now I have 25. And once it looks like 25/100ths, I can make a decimal. 0.25 is 25/100ths. All right, 8/20ths. I'm going to do a different, I could do the same as I just did this question up here, but I've got another technique right here. I'm going to simplify this guy. If I were to divide by 4, simplify by dividing by 4, I would end up with 2/5, which we just said was an easy one. But if I want to work it out that other way, 8/20ths times 5 times 5 is 40/100, 40/100ths. Those are the exact same thing. This 0 just doesn't have to be there. It can be there or it doesn't have to be there. So to recap, we have some that we've just memorized. We've been doing this long enough that we just know them. We have some that have easy denominators. They can make 100 pretty easily. Then we've got everything else. So our strategy for everything else is divide. To change a fraction into a decimal, your basic step is to divide. So I'm going to try taking 9/16, and I'm going to show you how to change him into a decimal. I like writing the fraction, and then I like drawing my little division sign, the house. I don't know if you've ever called it a house. I like drawing the division sign down on the ground level. Houses can't float. You can't have the house way up here in the sky. You have to have the house on ground level. Then you bring the 9 inside the house. This guy comes down inside. If I don't do that, then sometimes students, right, they're not sure which way it goes. 9 on the inside, 9 on the outside. But if you'll take my advice and write the fraction and then draw the house and then take this guy and bring him inside. Okay, then you'll always have it correct. 16 is on the outside, 9 is on the inside. Now we're going to divide. How many times does 16 go into 9? It can't, so I put a 0. Then I write a decimal, and I write a 0 here. How many times can 16 go into 9D? All right, so in order to figure out how many times 16 goes into 90, I did some scratch work off to the side, and it looks like 5 is going to work the best. 5 times 16 is 80. Subtract and get 10. Add a 0. Bring that 0 down. Now how many times is 16 going to go into 100? Well, I already did this scratch work, so I know that 6 makes 96. Subtract and get 4. Add another 0. Bring the 0 down. 16 is going to go into 40 twice, which is 32. And I really wish this would have ended, but I have to add another 0. Bring the 0 down. 80. Bingo. It's going to be a 5. 80. And it's going to end. So, final answer. 9 over 16 as a decimal is 0.5625. All right, let's try this question. 4/9. We're going to write 4/9 as a decimal. It's not one I know off the top of my head, so I'm going to draw my house. I'm going to bring the 4 inside the house. 9 can't go into 4. 9 can go into 40. 4 times, which is 36. And I get a 4 again. Add another 0, bring the 0 down. Look, it's going to be a 4 again, which is going to be 36 again. And I add another 0 and I get 40 again. So I'm pretty sure it's just going to keep being 4s, in which case I write 0.4 with a bar over the top. The bar means that it repeats. Okay, so now I'm going to give you, there's one more thing I want to say. If the question had been -4/9, you don't do anything with this negative sign, just kind of forget that it's there. You do all of this work, and then you just say that the answer is negative. So if you ever have a negative question, some of your homework will be negatives. Don't do anything with the negative, kind of forget about it, and then stick it back in at the very end. All right, now you're going to stop the video, and you're going to try turning 5/8 into a decimal with using the division procedure that I just talked about. So pause the video and push play when you're done and check your work, see if you're right. And 5/8 is equal to 0.625. Look and see if you did it correctly. All right, now we've got to go the reverse direction and change these decimals back into fractions. So what we want to ask ourselves is how many numbers, how many digits behind the decimal are there? That's going to be the same as the number of zeros on the denominator. So it's either the denominator choices are going to be 10, 100, 1,000, stuff like that. So in this guy, I have 1 digit, so I'm going to have 1 0, not 2 zeros, not 3 zeros. I'm picking the guy that's 1 0. It's always these choices, never any other choices. So that makes it easy. 10, 100, 1,000, so on. Keep the pattern going. But those are our only options for denominators. So 0.7, which we knew that already, right? 7/10 looks like 7/10. This guy has 2 digits. So we're going to pick 100. 7 over 100. This guy has 2 digits. 17 over 100. This guy has an extra number in the ones place, in the whole number spot. 1 and 17/100. Now, so far I haven't given you any of them that needed to be simplified, but a lot of times these fractions over here can be simplified into something smaller. All right, so let's take a look at these. I have 2 digits past the decimal. That means I'm going to have 100. I have 2 digits past the decimal. I'm going to have 100. I only have 1 digit past the decimal. It's going to be a 10. 2 digits, 100. 24 goes on top. 25 goes on top. 5 goes on top. 5 goes on top. We really don't need this 0 right here. Because that just like looks funny. Doesn't it look funny? So you don't need that extra 0. Okay, now let's go back and say, oh, I can't forget about my 4. Oh, I can't forget about my -12. Now I need to simplify. If I don't simplify, it's not correct. So what goes into 24 and 100? Well, 2, but surely we can get something bigger than 2. 4 goes into both of them. Does 8? No. Does 12? Just this guy. I think maybe it's going to be 4. So 24 divided by 4 is 6, and 100 divided by 4 is 25. So this guy ended up being 6/25. 25 over 100, that can be simplified. We could divide both of those by 25. We could divide both of them by 5, but 25 is actually better. And I get 1 over 4. So this guy is 1/4, which maybe you remember from earlier, 0.25 was a fourth. You kind of just knew it. Yeah, if you just know these guys, that's okay too. 4 and 5/10 simplifies down to 4 1/2. -5 and 100 simplifies down to -12, and let's see, divide by 5, 1/20. And the negative is just there. He didn't do too much. All right, here's your next 2 questions to try by yourself. Make both of those into fractions in simplest form. Pause the video and see if your answers are correct. And there you go. 4/10 ends up being 2/5. Because I put it 4 over 10, and then I simplify, divide both of them by 2. This guy ends up being -7 and 36 over 100. Both of these can be divided by 4, so I get 9 and I get 25. All right, the last 2 questions are going to be your quiz questions. All right, here's your Google Classroom questions that you're going to fill out on a form in Google Classroom. Change 1/8 into a decimal and change this guy into a fraction. Good luck.